I'm so excited. Let's get the show on the road. All right, we have our two guest speakers here. Andy Chadwick. Andy has been in the SEO industry since 2013, worked with startup companies, as well as lots of international organizations. Andy is primarily known for his unique approach to keyword research, having developed multiple tools in the keyword categorization subject. Suganthan is a digital marketing consultant with over 9 years of experience. Solving difficult SEO problems is certainly his passion. He always nerds out with SEO with me on Twitter for like the last few years. He has experience working with venture capital funds and working with hundreds of clients around the world, delivering campaigns. These two are the founders of Snippet Digital. Snippet Digital is an exclusive SEO consultancy that provides advanced digital strategies to clients like Sprout Social, Satva, Planet of the Vapes, and more. They're specifically known for creating very specialized tools, which will likely get a sneak peek or two at what they're working on, but really excited to have them here to talk about why content pruning matters for SEO, but more importantly, what to do about it in a step-by-step way. I'll hand over the mic to the both of you.
Cool, thank you very much for the intro, Bernard, and we're excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me one sec. Cool, can you see it? Yeah. Lovely. I'm going to skip past, so just to, hang on. This is the sort of the layout of today, I guess. So we're going to start with a bit about, well, we're not going to go about us because I think you gave quite a thorough intro there. So I'm probably going to skip straight into what is content pruning. Then we'll talk about the benefits of that before moving on to how to prune, actually how to do it. We talk about smart redirect mapping, which is what will become more obvious. And then we'll link to some tools and resources and follow up with a conclusion and any questions and answers. So we've got this about us, but we're going to leave the deck with you after. So just for anyone who actually cares, it's there. You probably won't, but we'll leave it in there anyway. So we'll start off with what it actually is content pruning. And Bernard, if anyone wants to ask questions in the Q&A box, I don't actually have a specific point to stop at until the end. So if you want to ask a question on something, please just put it in. And if you could ask it for us, Bernard, that would be brilliant. So content pruning defined is, well, it's quite obvious really. It's deleting or merging any content on your site that isn't providing value. And what we mean by that is if it's not providing value, it's because it's got no traffic or little traffic. It ranks for absolutely no keywords, or if it does rank for keywords, it's on page 5 or 6 and is completely irrelevant to what the page is about and has no links. So these bits of content aren't doing anything for your site. And the benefits of content pruning is, so getting rid of these pointless bits of content, these ones that aren't contributing, is first of all, it makes it easier for Google to find important pages. So you can imagine if your site, and we have seen them as 1 million, 2 million URLs long, or that has that many URLs and only 10% of them actually are providing value for you. It's that sort of needle in a haystack analogy where Google's trying to find it by crawling everywhere, and it's really you're not giving it enough importance. You're covering it up with all this other crap, and it's just so much more difficult for it to find. So by pruning all of the content that isn't doing anything, you're just making it easier for Google to find those pages. Second one is it improves the overall quality of your content. So if you think about it, so the way search engines look at your site and the way it looks at the web as a whole is like a corpus of documents. So if you think about how, if you make this into a metaphor where your website is a library book in a library, Google would see your site as that corpus of documents. Every page within the book is contributing to an overall perception of quality of your site. So if you've got, let's say 100 pages, because it's easy, and 90 of them are just rubbish, not contributing anything, they're not doing anything, then effectively 10% of your site is good. 10% of your site is of high quality. If on the other hand, you've got 20 pages other than as opposed to your 100, and still 10 are really good and 10 aren't, then 50%, your site is 50% good, if that makes sense. it's 50% high quality. So it just improves that overall perception that a search engine has of your site and the quality of that site, because it views your site as a corpus of documents. It optimizes the distribution of your link authority. So again, if you've got all these pages not doing anything, and they're being, providing they're not orphan pages, they're often linked to from at least somewhere, your page rank, that link equity you've got going to pages is flowing through pages that aren't doing anything. So it's some really good videos on how the page rank algorithm works and on YouTube, and I'd really suggest like watching them. They're really interesting. But yeah, the more of these pointless pages you've got, the link equity from the really good pages is just being spread through these pointless ones, which is not what we want. And then the most obvious one is it's just website debloating and just improving the speed overall. So we talk a lot about crawl budget, and I'm sure everyone's heard about crawl budget. It's basically this idea. Well, it's not an idea, it is a thing, but that Googlebot hits your site, will stay on it for, or crawl X amount of number of URLs until it effectively gets bored and then goes off to the next site. The biggest thing here is just the caveat: crawl budget isn't an issue on sites with a couple of hundred or even a couple of thousand pages. It is an issue when we start talking, millions of pages. But even on smaller sites with a couple of thousand, where crawl budget isn't actually an issue, it still debloats that site and still makes it quicker for Googlebot to crawl through those important pages and visit them more often than it otherwise would, just because it isn't spending its time going through these pointless pages which have no traffic, have no links, and aren't doing anything. When we've done these content pruning, when we've got rid of content, we often see great results. And throughout the course of this presentation or lecture, and it is a lecture, you'll see loads of case studies that we put together, so you can see what we've done, how we've done it, and the impact that has had. Which brings us on to 3. How do we actually conduct that content audit? So this is the basic framework. I guess I'm always a bit hesitant to put framework in because I think sometimes it over-intellectualizes something that doesn't need to be intellectualized, but I guess this is how we do it. So first of all, we would audit the site, and we'll talk through what that looks like. Then we plan which content goes, which content stays, which content gets redirected, which content gets updated. We prioritize that because obviously if you've got 200,000-300,000 URLs, you need to prioritize which ones you sort first. Then we implement that, and it's very important, and we'll mention this again later. You implement it in batches. Again, we've seen cases where someone's gone the whole hog and implemented everything in one go, and the traffic tanks. So these results aren't because we've done it all in one go. They're because we've gradually done it, seen what's working. If it hasn't worked, rolled it back and then tried it something else, or come up with a reason why it's not working. So it's very important you implement things in batches, so that if something does happen, you can more easily put your finger on why that's happened. And then you monitor it. So you monitor how that batch did, you monitor how those changes went, and then if it worked, you do it on the next batch, and then if it worked, you do it on the next batch, and if it didn't, you roll that batch back, and then that's the process. And then you keep auditing.
And it's also like an iterative process. That's why this framework is made in a way like you have to continuously do it. Like it's not like a one-off thing, so it's a continuous cycle.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things we always like to do at the end of a content audit, because it's quite a labor-intensive thing to do, as you'll see. I mean, there's ways to speed it up, and we'll show you what they are. But because it's quite labor-intensive, what we'd always recommend, and actually we haven't put this in the presentation, which we should have done, is once you've done one, setting up some sort of dashboard that can continuously check going forward. And I'll talk about that at the end. I don't have a slide on it, unfortunately, but I'll talk about how to do that at the end. The biggest thing is you will more than likely need to tool up. So to make a truly informed decision, you're going to have to put in so many metrics. Otherwise, you're fighting blind. I've seen content audits done just off of Search Console, and I've seen content audits just done off analytics, and it's just not giving you the full picture, and you might miss some or delete some incredibly valuable pages. So at the very least, we look at organic sessions and we look at total sessions. And the reason we look at both, and I'll again go into it in a bit, is some pages when you're doing your audit get a lot of total sessions and then not many organic sessions. And if that's the case, you want to delve into why. Clearly that page is valuable for someone, Otherwise, it wouldn't be having sessions at all. So why isn't it being found organically? And it might be that that page is actually just a landing page there for paid or something. But again, I guess the reason we're having this conversation is you'll often be doing content audits on huge sites where the SEO team and the paid team are two different teams, and there's that communication breakdown. So you definitely want to pull in total sessions just in case that dialogue isn't happening and you accidentally delete a page that was really important. Then you want to pull in the number of inbound links. So obviously you don't just want to delete pages that have loads of links, because you could redistribute that link equity elsewhere. So even if the page has got no traffic, but it's got a load of links, then we can redirect it, repurpose it, and use that link equity on a page where we do want more traffic. You want to pull in the date that if it's blog traffic you're looking at, you can use content audits to audit every page on that site. But if you're purely focusing on the blogs and the content and the editorial, you often should pull in the post date and the last edited date if there is one. You can often get that from the metadata, and if it's not actually on the page, it's always written in the metadata, and you can do that with some sort of custom extraction. The reason you want to pull in the date is because, again, you don't want to be, and we'll show you later, but when you're doing a content audit, you want to look at least the last 12 months data to make an informed decision. If that blog or that post was written a month ago, it's not fair to delete it because it's not really had time to bed in. So you always want to pull in the date it was posted as well. You want to pull in the number of ranking keywords in the top 100, the top 10, and the top 3. The reason you want to do that is, and again, it will become obvious, some bits of content that don't have any sessions or any organic sessions, and yet they've got like 200 keywords ranking in the top 100, but none ranking in the top 10. Generally speaking, these are because it could just all be on page 2 and 3, and it just needs a bit of nudging, and that's all it needed to push it up. If you can't get access to that, another way of looking at that, I guess, would be just to look at impressions. Again, if it's got a load of impressions but not much organic data, not much organic actual sessions, then that's another clue that it's being surfaced a lot, it's relevant for a lot, but it's just missing off those top spots. So we like to put in those 3, but you could, I guess, just do it off impressions if you weren't able to pull in those 3. You want to look at click-through rate. Again, it's just that added level of, okay, this blog hasn't got many organic sessions or many sessions at all, or it has got quite a few sessions, but the click-through rate is really poor. What is it that we need to do here? Like, is it just a meta description update, or is it because, again, we're just not on page 1, so the click-through rate's low? And then you want to pull through the 12-month traffic trend. And again, I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like a spark line in the sheet. The reason you want to pull that through is we've often done, again, content audits where if you just pull 12 months data in, and you'll often see a piece of content that has, because you're just looking at an Excel cell, right? So in that Excel cell, that's a tongue twister. In that cell on Excel, either way you say it, it's a tongue twister. In that cell, it's got 5,000 sessions. You think, oh shit, this is a good piece of content, I'm going to keep this. And then if you actually delve into that bit of content in analytics, you'll find sometimes, or often actually, that 5,000 sessions happened in 2 days, and then it didn't have anything else. And it's often because perhaps it was a Black Friday sale, which did really well and smashed it for like 2 days, and then it suddenly crashed, or then it's not relevant anymore. Or there was a massive email campaign where they pushed it out to all the emails, and loads of people then Googled it, because we're only looking at organic sessions, right? Loads of people Googled it and then they landed on it. Or it was
could
just
be a PR,
one-off.
Could be a PR thing that got, yeah.
Yeah, PR thing, a big PR thing. So, and it's just had this one little spike and then it dropped. So if you pull through the 12-month traffic trend, when you're scanning down your spreadsheet, which we'll show you in a bit, you can actually see it's had 5,000 sessions, but it was all in 2 days. And then you know that, okay, this content is probably not doing anything for us.
All right, I'm going to interrupt just to drop a couple of questions on the slide. John asks, what advice would you give to companies that are hesitant to prune due to the perception that older URLs are better than newer pages? For example, if the slug is appropriate, right, there's no like date 2019 / whatever in it, and there's a path to updating the old poor performing content. Why would you take that approach versus deleting the old page and starting fresh?
I'd say that it depends how big the site is, right? So if the site is massive, you've got to do some scalable way of doing this. If it's small, by all means, just update it and keep having a go with it. But if we're talking literally a massive site, it's this risk versus reward type effort type scenario. And if it's that big, then you're going to spend what metrics would you, and I'd love to know if you can think of a way, but what metrics would you pull in to work out that, okay, this content is worth having another go at and updating it? So if it's literally doing nothing for you, literally doing nothing, there's no metrics you can possibly go off to go, yeah, we should be updating this. Then for me, when we're talking massive sites, and you'll see how we scale it in a minute, for me, the scaling thing, being able to scale it and rapidly just delete loads of content or redirect it is worth a lot more than trying to manually go through it and update it and not get anywhere. The age of that URL becomes a lot less relevant for me. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Suganthan.
I'm just looking at that question. I'm thinking, if I think for companies to do the old pages, they still you'll still have your authority, whatever. But when you do the pruning itself, then you will know there's a reason why, whether you want to delete it or not. Because if the page is good and if it's satisfying whatever the business goals for that page, then you don't have to prune it. Right. So the technical URL thing that you're talking about is like only if you are changing, like as he said, like if there's a date in it, it's like, top 10 products, X products for 2020, then yeah. But if it's top 10 products and that page is ranking well, there's no need for you to prune it.
Yeah. And I guess that's a good point. We, as you'll see, because we go through the criteria that we have for deleting content, it's quite a strict criteria. We don't just delete it because it's got zeros across the board. You'll see what our criteria is, and if it's not being deleted, it's being redirected. In which case, the point's moot because we're redirecting it somewhere else anyway.
Totally. I think there's a slew of like follow-up questions surrounding this idea as well. I'm just going to ask one more because it's kind of in alignment, right? Can you expand on the idea of no traffic, lots of links? What do you mean by repurposing that content, right? I feel like we were taking stabs at this to say, yeah, it all does more or less depend on a variety of different things. And I think, as Andy probably goes through his presentation, you'll see that some will fall clearly into, okay, no value, delete these. Some will fall into maybe has value, can consider refreshing, updating these. And then some will clearly fall into, yes, definitely like refresh these, repurpose them, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to let Andy go on with the rest of the presentation. But again, if you have questions that come up during that, I'm more than happy to address those as they come up.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, that is all answered in probably about 3 or 4 slides time.
Yeah.
So the next point of this is you can't possibly go through and do that for each bit of content. So you need to create a scalable way of grading it. And again, don't worry, this isn't all theoretical. At the very end, we do link to a template that you can download and use yourself, as well as a guide. We're just showing you how we do it. But yeah, so we've created a scalable way of grading that content. So based off of all these metrics, and actually a lot more for us, these are just the ones we definitely think you need to pull in as a minimum. Based off those metrics and everything, we've created a long sort of formula, or we'll call it an algorithm if we want to be pretentious, that basically gives each page a page score. So does it have this many links or this many links? Give it this points. If it's this many links or this many links, give it this many points. Does it have this traffic to this traffic? Give it this many points. Sorry, links. I say points. If it's got this traffic, this many points. If it's got this traffic, this many points. If it's got a slow page score, give it this many points. And all those points get added up and it gets a page score, which you can just see in here. And I'll show you in a second how it looks. And then based on that page score, it gives a suggested action straight away. And just pure like caveat, we don't just look at the suggested action and then go for it. We then review that suggested action, but it's just a scalable way of quickly grading it and being able to go, okay, with some degree of confidence, this many things can probably be deleted, and we'll scan across. And I'll show you how that looks in a minute. And we also give it a priority number, which we'll go through again in a second. And that's based off of just some formulaic way of grading it. So just to go through how the initial suggested action is calculated. Well, basically, like I said, we do it on a points-based system. And just to be very clear as well, in fact, I'll give you a quick sneak preview so that, I don't have one. So if I just give you a quick sneak preview, I'm hoping it's in here. No, okay, I've gone the one without formulas, but there's a, Suganthan, whilst we're on this, whilst I'm presenting, could you get the one with formulas up in a second so we can show it at the end?
Yeah.
The template. But there's a sheet I've not got on this one because this is the no formula one we send to the client. But there's like a homepage one, if you like, and once you've dumped all your data in, we average how many sessions the site gets, how many sessions the organic sessions the site gets, the average amount of links the site has. So these actions based on this points-based system isn't just based on like an arbitrary number. It's all done to the average of that site, if that makes sense. But Suganthan will get that, and we'll show you at the end. So it's because you can't grade the amount of sessions one B2B business has compared to a B2C one, because the B2B one will often have a lot less sessions. So it is all dependent on the average for that site. But I'll show you that later. So yeah, we basically have got a scalable way of grading that content quickly. And these are the actions that get automatically generated before we manually review them to some extent. So if we're saying updating content, it's because it has a lot of keywords ranking in the top 100, but not necessarily the top 10 or top 3. So what we're saying here is, look, this piece of content ranks for a lot, but it's maybe a bit of work can be done just to push it into the top 10 and even the top 3. If it hasn't been updated in a while, it flags up as an updating content. If the traffic is steadily declining, and you can see that in the sparklines graph, it would say update content. If it's got a lot of impressions but a low click-through rate, it would say update content. And if it's got a low word count, it would also say update content. And the reason that fifth one is important is because sometimes that's a really quick win. Sometimes we see content that has a lot of keywords ranking in the top 10, and then even more ranking in the top 100, but it's got a low word count. And for me, that's just a quick. It's not a North Star. Just because it's got a low word count, it doesn't mean that you can just add more words and it'll rank. But sometimes you look at it again, you go, actually, I can add more to that, and I can get more into the top 10. So it's got a low word count. It would also have updating content. Action 2, deleting content, and this is content that has, as we said at the very beginning, it's got no links, it's got no keywords ranking in the top 100, or if it does, it's ranking in position 17 onwards and isn't specific. It could be a time-specific piece of content, so a sales page, but that didn't have any links, because it's important to mention that, because you have some sale pages that acquire a load of links and you don't want to delete them. It's got a low predicted traffic, so Ahrefs gives obviously a estimated traffic type score, so it's got a really low or negligible amount of predicted traffic, and it also has a low word count, or it could have a high word count. To be honest, if it's got a high word count and none of these, it would also fall into that. It's just based on the point-based system, it does look at how many words it's got.
Andy, what do you consider a low word count, as asked by Lori?
So we would say anything less than 400 or 500. Well, 400, it gets flagged as low word count. But if it's got 500, it's sort of edging on there. But like we stagger that point. So, 400 would get 1 point, 500 might get 2 points, and so on. But anything less than 400 for us gets 0 points.
Totally. An interesting question here by Andy. He asks a hypothetical situation. There's a content marketing agency, and one of their top performing pages is about Halloween candy. It's bringing in a lot of traffic, perhaps the most traffic of all of their different pages. Because the content is really off topic and irrelevant, would this be the kind of content that you might kill, redirect, deprioritize, because removing it might give a boost to other pages?
It's an interesting one, and we saw
zombie
it with
one.
yeah, we saw it with a big US career site. So think Indeed jobs, but or Monster jobs, but in the US. And they had a piece of content. The biggest content driver for them, and this is a huge site, and the biggest content driver for them was what to do in a zombie apocalypse, which was just so irrelevant. So with things like that, that would be the sort of thing that would in our system would get flagged as leave as is or update. And when we're manually reviewing them, that would be one I would go off of the spreadsheet and dig into analytics and go, okay, look, has this bit of content, you can set segments up, right? I say, has this bit of content actually ever converted? Like, does anyone, what's the user journey for this one bit of content? If it's not doing anything, I would personally get rid of it for that reason. Like, let's get that topical relevance back to what it should be. If it's got links, I'd redirect it to somewhere else. I think. Well, I wouldn't think I would. I would get rid of it. Our advice to this career site was to get rid of it for the zombie one, because it never converted and it was just diluting their topical relevance, as you said.
Awesome. Good to go.
Pro tip, before anything's deleted, you should manually check it to ensure it does not have business value. So again, I just want to make it really clear, although our spreadsheet, which you'll get access to, says delete, don't just delete it.
I got a point on that, the deletion part. I had a good example of a client I worked with. It was a political sort of think tank website where I did a content pruning, and then I saw there's a lot of pages that they had an about page with their staff page that was getting a lot of traffic. And then when I spoke to them, and I realized, okay, there's a lot of journalists, they were looking for these pages, but when we put them through that, our spreadsheet, it told us, look, there's not much value here. You could delete this, right? But when we manually checked them and started looking at it and started talking to the client, then we realized, okay, that journalists are looking for the contact details. So they're going to this about page and looking at their staff and then trying to find their phone number, and email addresses. So that's a business value, even though from our sort of algorithmic way of looking at, traffic, links, and all of that, we say, look, we don't need it, delete it. But from a business perspective, it makes sense to keep those pages. So that's why it's really important you do this and you manually check pages that come up as delete.
Yeah. I'll show you quickly how we do that at the end. And redirecting content is normally sort of comes up if that page basically is the same as the delete content, in that it's got no traffic, it's got no sessions, it's got nothing, but it has links. So if that's the case, if it's got links, it will flag up as redirect. A big note on this one is, and we see it quite often, is that people just redirect all of that to the homepage, which results in stuff 404. So there is a case where you can redirect some to the homepage. The example might be that Candy one. If that's got a load of links and it's completely irrelevant to the rest of the site, just redirect that to the homepage. But don't just mass delete 300 blogs to the homepage. It will do you more harm than good. And this is a point where one action we actually missed out. Yes.
Sorry, I shared the spreadsheet with you if you need it with the.
Cool. One action we've missed out on here, and I'll drop it in for when you have the slides, is there's one that says leave content as it is. Basically, don't touch it. And generally speaking, this would be if it has literally been written in the last 2-3 months. And it hasn't really had time to make any insight from, which is why pulling in that date is really important.
And so also, Andy, the conversion data as well. Any with the conversion data, because that's the question Ryan asked, whether what we should do about pages. Yeah. Yes.
So we do, and it's not here either, but another metric we pull in is, like we said, we create a segment, and it's I could write it at the end of this presentation so anyone can download it, but we create a custom segment in analytics, which basically looks at, has anyone visited this content And then within whatever your look back window is in analytics, have they ever come back and then converted if you're an e-commerce store or if you're a store that tracks conversions? So we also do call that in as well.
I have a question about the soft 404s. So this is something that is obviously hotly contested when you're doing pruning, right? A lot of people say, okay, well, if we're going to delete these pages, let's just redirect them to the home page. You have mentioned here that this results in soft 404s, basically Google hitting this page that no longer exists and redirecting it to the home page. And it has been noted that this is a negative like SEO like value activity. Can you describe why you believe that soft 404s are negative for your site, which is why you shouldn't just redirect old pages that aren't doing well to your homepage?
Because of 404, so the reason we're redirecting it is to obviously push that link equity to another page, because it's got links, right? So if you're flagging up as 404, a 404 is Google just ignores it, right? So if you're getting these 404, you're still not benefiting from that redirection. I don't think it's necessarily, and it's just wasting its time again as well, isn't it? It's crawling it and going, well, this is a 404, so it's wasting its time as well. That's my point of view. Suganthan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think also the authority, when you're thinking about parsing equity, you're talking about the topical relevancy as well, that you're passing from a page that's, say, is some related to something. It's always wise to redirect that to a page that's related to that. So, you know, you're passing not only the authority, you're just passing the topical authority, the way I see it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have an opinion about this. So it's like, theoretically speaking, if you had a page and you soft 404 redirected it to your homepage, you can imagine, say the page is about Halloween candy, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to take that page and redirect it to my homepage. What you're actually doing then to Google is you're basically saying that now this old page, my Halloween candy page, has become my homepage. And where your Halloween candy page was ranking across the board in Google search results for all kinds of Halloween candy related searches, Google's actually trying your homepage now, or at least the like a ghost of your Halloween candy page.
Yeah.
And people are landing on that page, being redirected to your homepage, and you could understand like being completely off topic and being like, what the heck is this? And guess what they're doing? They're going back to Google, clicking on another result and being like, okay, that was like terrible. Don't do that again. So you're actually then harming your content's ability to serve users in a Google search result. And if you do this in mass, you can imagine lots of things are going to be redirecting, and then Google's will be like, okay, this site does like, maybe they did something crazy, and then you'll lose like rankings even more rapidly, which is my case of saying you shouldn't soft 404 stuff, because you're confusing Google, and then you're also breeding potentially bad user engagement metrics when Google does try those older pages in the SERPs.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a lot more eloquent than I put it. And actually, it's interesting you should say that. There's, I think Matt Barbie's got plenty of cases on it. Matt Barbie from HubSpot, where they've bought relevant sites to HubSpot or his own little private projects, and then they basically redirected the whole. They've redirected all the page. They've mapped all the relevant pages on the site they bought to their new site, and then they've redirected the home page to their new homepage. So they did all the redirects to like the relevant bits of content first, and they saw a massive traffic spike. And then the minute they actually redirected the homepage of the site they bought to the homepage of the site that they're trying to fold it into, the traffic dropped again. And then when they removed that redirect from just the home pages, it went up again. And same reason you just said there, Barnard, it just throws Google off in terms of, oh, what's this about? And that was a really interesting case study. So yeah. Shall I move on?
Yes, yes.
Cool. But so redirecting content, don't just redirect it all to the homepage for all those reasons. But mapping URLs manually is a ball ache, especially when you're trying to do it at scale. So we've developed something in-house, and this isn't available to the public. The reason I'm showing it to you is because I've linked to Hamlet Batista actually basically gave us 90% of the code which did this. So feel free to have a go and build your own one. If not, there's an alternative which I'll go through. But what we've done is developed manually something which, not manually, that's something which I'll show you. Basically, it's a Streamlit app, and we drop the new URLs into here. We drop the old URLs into here, and then we use BERT, which is the algorithm Google uses to work out what a topic's about. And then when we hit match, I've got an example of how it spits it out somewhere. When we hit match, what it does is it basically looks at all the URLs and pairs them up with another URL and gives it a percentage similarity. So you can see here 99%, 99%. Generally, anything over 70% is pretty good, and we can just mass redirect like that. The reason we use BERT is because it finds topically, because of what BERT is, it finds topically similar topics. So it's not even, if it's an exact match, it'll find that and it'll give it 0.99. But if it's topically similar, it will be like 0.70, and it's good enough to redirect. A good example was, we did one for a who was it? It was it doesn't matter. But basically,
Cash-strapped.
No, I can't remember. But one of the bits of content was on cash strap. That was it. I'm being cash strapped, and I can't remember. But another bit of content, and that was one we were getting rid of. Another bit of content was how coping under pressure. And you can see being cash strapped. So what the BERT algorithm had looked at, and it had a similarity score of like 69% or 65%. And what it had worked out, the BERT algorithm was like, look, cash strapped is being under pressure, so this is a good enough redirect. So that's why we use BERT. There's a link to a code here. So what Hamlet wrote here it was slightly different. It was have to map 404 URLs at scale with sentence embeddings. Sentence embeddings isn't BERT, but if you're comfortable with Python, it's just basically swapping out the library for a BERT library and following through tutorial here. If you don't want to go down that route, there is obviously, where's it gone? There is obviously fuzzy lookup, which is it looks up similar things. What that won't give you is it won't map two URLs that have nothing in common but are
semantically related. It has to be quite it won't work in a semantic way.
So fuzzy lookup will work if the URLs have the same words in, so it's good for finding relative duplicate content, I guess. What it won't do is, in that example we gave earlier, like finding cash strapped and redirecting it to a blog about being under pressure. That's something you need something like BERT for. We've got that, so that's what we use, but by all means have a look at the code and try doing it yourself, or there's other sort of less good alternatives, I guess. And then action 4 is manually checking. So we've gone through, so we've got at this point, just to refresh your memory, we've got update, we've got delete, we've got redirect, we've got leave as is, and the final action, confusingly we've listed as action 4, but it's action 5, is manually check. And this fires up if the pages meet the following criteria. So it's got no links, it's got no keywords ranking, it's got no conversions, but it's got a high amount of sessions and a low amount of organic sessions. Again, it just comes to that point, like, why is someone finding this useful but it's not ranking organically? So these are ones we like manually check. To be honest, it's a bit of a confusing term because we do check nearly all of them, not quite as manually as the manually check box. We don't just mass delete or mass redirect, as we've said. We do apply a few other checks, which I'll show you in a sec. And then always add extra information to help your final decision. So we talked about those metrics we add back here as a minimum. Basically, this is what we're talking about here. So we always add the date published, as you can see. We always add the traffic trend, as you can see here, so we can see where it spikes or not. And then what we always do is we always add, like, we break it apart into content types. So you've got to imagine if you crawl them to the whole site, you've got their transactional pages, you've got their blog pages, and then within their blog, you've got, within the blog, you might have advice, you've got tips, you've got whatever. We always break that in so we can do it section by section and the content type. And we also always write down a reason, just so we can come back to it. A, so we can come back to it, and B, so that if we get pushback from the stakeholders, they can quickly view why we're saying what we're saying. And you don't need many, like you can keep recycling the same one. Like I said, because you've implemented this logic where it hits a certain point system, generally speaking, you can come up with the same reasons and just copy and paste them down.
It's easy for a buy-in as well, right, Andy, with the management, when you have a clear, like a reason why individual piece should be whether deleted or redirected. It's just easier for someone to look at it and say, rather than going through all the logic, they could just look at it and say, okay, this is the reason why we're suggesting we take this action.
And you implement it. So the initial implementation involves setting up the redirects, removing or updating pages within content, and basically separating it all. So I'll show you what that looks like at this point before I go into the next part. So we have this master list here where we basically update this as we go along. So how I would be doing this is we've dumped all of it into our sheet with the formulas, which we're going to link to after, and it's pulled through all of this data, and it's given them all a page score, and it's come up with a load of suggested actions. The first thing I always do, because the delete ones are the quickest ones to get rid of, I filter for anything with delete, and then I filter for anything, and there's not many because I've already manually changed these, but there was maybe 3 times as many deletes. And then I'll filter for anything which has 0 keywords in the top 10 and the top 100. I filter for anything which has sessions well under the average. And then I'll filter, like I'll just play around with the filters. It's quite an iterative process until I'm happy that all the blogs I'm looking at are definitely low quality. And then I'll just make sure I copy, delete down, and then I'll click analyze here just so I know that I've looked at them. And then I'll filter for anything without the little Y or the little 1 in that column, and then I'll get left with a load of more deletes. And then I'll look at them, and I'll oh, good news from the BBC. And then I'll look at them, and I'll be like, okay, so why didn't I delete? Like, why wasn't I happy about labeling this as delete in my first thing? And I'll scan across the columns. Oh, it's because it ranked it did have a keyword in top 100. So I'll scroll across to this column. Okay, what keyword was it, and what position was it in? I was in, what position was it in? It's in position 70, and it was a pointless keyword. So now what I'll do is I'll filter by anything in position 50 and backwards, and then I'll copy and paste delete down there, and then I'll click analyze, and then I'll go for the next load of delete. And I'll get to a point where all the ones labeled as delete, I'm not quite happy that I should delete them because, maybe it's got some predicted traffic and it's got some keyword that's ranking and it could be valuable. And then just so I'm safe, I'll just manually change all of them to update, and then I will put them as analyze, and then I drop them into this column here, which is obviously the update one. And basically this is what I do. So you're working off this master sheet, and your aim is to sequentially apply filters to quickly get rid of the ones you don't want, to quickly redirect the ones, and then you're breaking them apart into these tabs. But the guide I linked to at the end goes through this in more detail. And then you've got this. You've got a list of all your content and what you should be doing with it. Going back to this, so that's your redirect, your delete, and that one. That's talking about this. So then you test and validate that. You make sure that all the ones you've said delete either server 410. We also maybe instead of delete, we'll actually just try and redirect them just because it's safer and easier. Because we can do that at scale, but if you can't do that at scale, just make sure you serve a 410, and then redirect, crawl all your redirects to see if they're working properly. Validate that. Then we talk about the updating content, which is the important bit. So at this point, you've ran your content audit, you've looked at the ones that say delete, you've applied filters in different ways to basically be happy that you're deleting the ones you're saying delete. You've applied the filters in different ways to be happy you're redirecting the ones that you said redirect. Everything else either goes into leave as is, and if it's leave as is, it's probably because it's just been rewritten, or you put it as update. So to answer a question we had earlier, we're actually quite strict with the ones we said delete. Like the one in the example I just showed you, there was probably 3 times as many, and it was just me applying filters to a point where I wasn't happy that I was saying delete to something that might be valuable, and then I moved that into the update column. So then this is the updating content now, and this is where the real magic happens, because at this point now we've pruned our content, we've got rid of the ones and redirected the ones we're not happy with. So now we update it. And it's important to carry out content update in batches, as we said, and monitor the website to see if the changes were positive. So coming back to this idea of a scalable way, and in the template we'll leave with you, it does do this itself. So every bit of content gets given a priority number. And again, it's looking at things like, if it's got a low content count, it will be a higher priority because it's easier to update it. If it's got loads of keywords in positions, hundreds and not many in 10, it will get a higher priority count because it's going to be easier to move them into position, make an impact so you can see it for your client. So that automatically generates a priority score for your update content. It's to be followed with a rule of thumb. Like, just because it's got a priority of 1, it doesn't mean that's the best bit of content. It just means algorithmically our things said this could be a good one to update, but quite often we don't do it. We use it as a guide more than as a North Star. And then update it. And I'll show you what that might look like. So here's an example of one we've just done. So this is in the update column we've got. And we pull through, you can see here the update column of the priority. So it doesn't start with priority 1 because you might have deleted that. And then we actually provide briefs, and we start doing briefs for each one. And you can see here, if I click into it, it'll bring up a brief for them. And they go ahead and they update these, and they fix that up. So coming back to this, you update it, and obviously without appearing to be sycophantic, you can use software like ClearScope and put in those briefs and start updating the content like that. I'm really sorry, the music's just come on really loudly. Can you hear that?
No, it's fine.
Oh, that's fine. Okay. So then you update it, and like we said, we follow this sheet, and we have a separate column in there, and we go ahead updating it. And we use software like ClearScope to make that content better, and then we roll it out. Sometimes you should buy content that should be combined. So quite often you might have 2 bits of content that say update, and actually they're really similar in nature. So what do we do with that? Like, there's no point updating both. Sometimes they should be rolled in together. And again, there are tools to quickly identify these. Again, without wanting to sound sycophantic, it's part of the reason we came up with keyword insights. Because what you can do is pull through all the keywords that each URL ranks for. I'll just show you how we would have run that so you can see. We would have plugged in that example of Planet Innovate. So we'll plug that in. We'll export all of the keywords and all the URLs. Then we'll dump that into our sheet here. And then we'll VLOOKUP against our update sheet. So we'll VLOOKUP against all the URLs that we've said that we're keeping. And then, to confuse you, it's going to go back to a Resonate example. But then what we'll do is you can start to see all the URLs so in this cluster of note investing, these are the keywords that can be targeted on one page. All these keywords should be targeted on one page. That's the point of clustering. And then scanning over here, you can see that we've actually got 2 URLs sort of competing for it. So we can see very quickly that these 2 should be combined. So back in your update column here, we would actually say, if we maybe make another column, and we'd say combine with, that one. So you'll often find that as well. But that's why we came up with keyword insights, or part of it. So there's tools to do that as well. And we know this works. So this is Latham's, where in this stage here, we pruned all the content and we did all the redirects. And then this is when we started updating. They had about 50 blogs, and you can put it into Wayback Time Machine and have a look. They had about 50 blogs, and we actually pruned it back to the point where they had literally 12 or 13. We got rid of a lot and redirected a lot. I mean, theirs was especially poor. We got rid of all of them. And then when we updated the first 2 or 3 good ones, made them really long, then we updated another batch, and we've updated another batch. And then we started adding to it as well. So there's maybe 15 or 16 blogs now. But just getting rid of all that crappy content and updating it, we can see just how much it's gone up. And then again, check and see how we validate that. So we check and see if Google's crawled the pages and indexed that updated content. And then we monitor it. So we track that, we track the rankings, and we just make sure that it's all positive. If it's not, roll it back. But we can't stress enough.
Annotation as well, like analytics, whatever tool you're using, you can add some annotations as you update, so you can compare and go back and see whether the change that you made had an impact. And also, as Andy said, it has to be done in a slowly, roll out slowly. That way you don't shock the system by doing the whole thing at once.
Yeah. And then finally, just some tools and resources for you to look at. So like we use for content auditing and updating, we use Ahrefs or the SEMrush API. We use Screaming Frog, obviously Google Analytics and Search Console. We API into that from Screaming Frog because it's really easy. We API into Google PageSpeed. We've got our internal but smart redirect mapper. That's an internal tool, but I've linked to the code so you can either try and create your own. Maybe we'll do something with it, or like we said, you've got fuzzy mapping, but that's just to make those redirects really quick. ClearScope, obviously, to improve the content when you're in that stage of you've got your content you want to update and you want to start putting briefs together. And then we use keyword insights to quickly find the cannibalization things, because you might both flag up as update in your thing, in your spreadsheet, and you don't want to update it. So it's just another layer of data we add to it. And then the other resources is this content pruning spreadsheet and article here. And if you click that, we'll obviously link you to the deck. I wrote it for Traffic Think Tank, and you can download this template here. It's not as in depth as the one we use and we've gone through here, but it's about 70–80% there. And what you can do is when you've downloaded that, you follow these instructions. In fact, you can see this screenshot here. I don't need to show you the example. It shows you that it pulls through all your average sessions, and you can fiddle around with it to make it to your site. And then it's just data dumping. So there'll be tabs. But let me just see if I can open it here so you can see it. That was probably the easy way. So here you go. So this is view only. So you have to make a copy. But what it does is it will pull through your average links, your average sessions. You'll then plug in values that you're happy with, and depending on what you plug in, it'll be what the formula says to delete or update. And then it's literally, you'll dump your Screaming Frog organic traffic in here. You'll dump all your traffic in here. You'll dump your Ahrefs data in here. And then in your master sheet, it will pull in all that data for you, as we've shown you. And then what you'll do is you'll create a copy of this because you want to keep it. And then you'll get rid of all the formulas so that you can manually start changing them as well. So there's a link there to that free template, which does 70% of the work for you in about 15 minutes, as the article says. And then the rest of the metrics you'll pull in manually. So, for example, what this doesn't pull in is, I showed you earlier, the columns like this traffic, this monthly session. It can't do that because you've got to pull that manually from something like SEO tools for Excel or stuff like that. So some of these columns you'll have to add in yourself if you want them, but it does 90%, as we said, and you can follow that there.
I mean, you can always bring in this data and write different tabs from other sources and VLOOKUP up against it and just bring in everything into your master sheet.
Yeah, so like a good example is the keyword insights. That's very recent. We only launched that 6 or 7 weeks ago, and we made it partly to find because we were finding trouble finding those duplicated things. So there isn't a column for that in here yet. So you'd add that as another tab and pull that information is. But yeah, read that anyway, because it probably is a lot clearer than having to go through it like I have on this presentation. And I guess that's everything at this point. So we'll obviously leave you with a deck. I'll make a few changes to it, like adding a few slides in that weren't in there as I went through it. But yeah, let us know if you've got any questions.
Wow, that was superb. I mean, I think the audience, 70 people still remaining here, speaks to how engaging that really was. Just an eye-opening step-by-step of, again, what some of the best SEOs on the market are doing in terms of pruning their content. We do have a follow-up question currently, and again, keep the follow-up questions coming along. But I selfishly have my own follow-up question first, which is to say, right, there's a lot of hesitation, anxiety, potential stress that's associated with pruning content. And oftentimes, as your screenshots have noted, you do see loss of traffic across the pages or the website that you're pruning. So the question then is, okay, at what point do you feel like the average loss threshold should look like? And what's the average duration that somebody should wait before they start maybe flipping out and saying, okay, maybe we got to roll back some of these changes that we've made it to the site?
I hate using the word. So in the
Defense.
in the case of that, let's
I'd
use
say
that
in
Candy
defense.
example. if it starts dropping, I dig into why, what's caused it, and then it comes into more of a traffic drop analysis. Like you start looking at, we've got a whole we've actually got a template on that as well if you ever want to talk about that. But like we dump it into that and it starts showing which pages are dropping. And if it was the case, let's use that Candy example. If it was the case that we're losing traffic, why? And the page that was losing traffic was this one about candy, and we're a website about selling houses. I just voice that to the client and say, look, it was this page, which wasn't doing anything for you anyway, so it's not a problem. I guess there's not a right answer to it in that you just look at what is dropping, and then if it was. Sorry, Suganthan.
Sorry, Andy. No, sorry, Andy. I was just going to say, that's also why we do this in stages, Bernard, right? This is why we don't do it at once, where sort of you have to think this like a version control in software development, right? In a way that you do small phases, and then constantly, as Andy said earlier, set up some sort of a tracking, like a dashboard where you can continuously monitor the changes you made. So for example, if you've done a whole bunch of deletion, you just wait a little bit of time for that to catch up, for Google to catch up and see, okay, has it made a big change? And then just wait a little bit before you start this next stage. So this way, you don't have to roll back everything and shut down the whole thing you did. You just roll back to where things kind of start falling. Yeah.
To answer your question, how long we wait, I'd wait 2-3 weeks to see if it's picked it up. Like a quick search of search like the actual title of that blog in and see if it's still in Google's index and see if it's still there. Like that's how I just sort of check it.
Totally. And I guess then as a follow-up question, which I do completely subscribe to, right? You shouldn't just go through and say you have 1,000 pages, just drop 800 of them and go, okay, all right, we're good, right? You should kind of go take a more gradual approach and not shock Googlebot with dramatic changes, because it does seem that Googlebot does really get alarmed when lots of things change on a website. So it's a good way of approaching a gradual thing. Say we have 100% of like things that we know we want to delete, 100% of things we know we want to refresh and update and whatever, and 100% that we want to keep static or whatever. It's like, is it a 10%, a 30%, and then a 60%? Or is it a 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%? How do you feel about the incremental, gradual approach of taking pages in a like that way versus like an absolute way?
So how are you asking how incremental we make it?
Yes.
Well, you're pulling out all the hard questions because I don't really ever. I hate to say I just have a gut feeling and I do what feels right. Like I've never actually put a formula on it. Because every site's different, right? If it was massive, like a huge one, I do it in a lot more. I'm more, and there's a lot of deletes in there. What I mean by that is if I add a load of filters and it literally is offering nothing, I'm confident in getting rid of all those deletes. So it could be, if it's a huge site, I'm more confident getting rid of 20 to 30% in one go. If it's a smaller site, you sometimes don't realize, and this is like, I'm not saying this is without fault and this is 100% going to work 100% of the time. On smaller sites, sometimes even with all the tools and all the data one page has, you don't actually realize it for some weird reason, and you can't put your finger on it. It had an effect on something. It was doing something, and you don't know why, because by all the logic, it's not doing anything. So I guess on bigger sites, I'm more confident to get rid of more depending on what those filters are. I don't have a formula for it, Bernard. It's just like I feel with it. Do you know what I mean?
So we also know, Bernard, right, that the most frequently crawled pages, there's a correlation between the pages that get crawled a lot more by Google and the rankings of that, right? So as Andy said, it's depending on the size of the site, and depending if it's an e-commerce site with a ton of like facets, like index, so many of these variations. Let's just say you have a product with like 10 different attributes, like, and none of them have any search volume, but these all, you know, indexed by Google. There's like 1,000 different, like thousands of millions of pages, right? These make sense to really quickly, you know, like remove, just an example, that's just an example. So let's just say you remove a ton of this content, you know, quickly, that's just going to make a good, like big difference. Straight away, you can see the change. But sometimes if you update some content that you think, you know, there was a Twitter discussion about it recently as well. I can't remember who said that. It's like, oh, I updated the content and made it the best thing ever, and I've lost rankings, right? So there's a situation, you're gonna run into a situation like this. So there's no guarantee, again, end of the day, that just, you know, changing, updating the content is gonna magically give you a ranking straight away, because there are other factors playing into that, like intent, authority, links, and there's a whole lot of other things. So as Andy said, you have to take a more of a, more holistic approach to this. Do this in phases, but you also have the gut feeling as you work on this campaign. You kind of know, right? But the more you work, you kind of get a feel for it. Okay, it seems to be working, or you know, you also see the data. Not only that, you will have a feel for it, right? Yeah, we don't have an exact formula for that, but it completely depends on the site, size of the site, niche, what niche you're on, competitive, whatever.
Totally.
And your risk tolerance.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. You brought up something interesting there, Suganthan, and I promise this is going to be the last super selfish question before getting into everybody's else's stuff, is this idea that the more times that Googlebot crawls your page, it's indicative that it's likely a quality page.
Important page. Important
Basically,
page, yes.
When we were thinking about content quality back in the day, we would scrape the last cache date. The last cache date you could find by prepending -- to any URL and on Google Chrome, and Google will say, okay, this is the last time I came to this page and saved a copy or cached it in my database. And what we saw was basically that top ranking front page content was last cached by Google in the like at most like 2-week timeline, but pretty much you're going to see like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, same day, that kind of thing. So that's to say, is another column that you pay attention to, like something to do with log file analysis? Have y'all dabbled in the, you know, the esoteric magic of log file analysis?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Suganthan loves that, and it is if we've got that data. I think 98% of people,
not everyone can get logs data.
Hardly anyone can give us the sort of log files that we need.
But Google is giving that data now conveniently hidden inside settings, the crawl stats. So there's some sort of at least I think it is something better than nothing in a way, because most people, you know, you just can't get log data. You know that for all the reason, you know. So I would look at that log data as well. Like, I mean, if you have some sort of Cloudflare system where it's like a Cloudflare worker, you can literally see these requests coming in, like, you know, Googlebot requests. You can literally see it. There's a good app called keep forgetting the name. Logflare. There's an app called Logflare. Yeah, Logflare. So Logflare is like a real time. You can literally see, like, if you go into request indexing and you put a URL and ask Google index, you just look at the logs, Logflare. You can literally see Googlebot visiting the page straight away. So you can get an idea. I have a dashboard on that. I've written an article about it on my blog. You guys can check it out. I'm sure some of you guys already know. It's quite an easy way of doing it, but you still need Cloudflare for that. There's another software called Logs. Logs. You don't really need Cloudflare, but there's a different way of doing it. But yeah, look at the logs as well, or crawl rates. Yeah.
To simplify what Suganthan just said, because he likes to talk in riddles. Yes, we'd love to look at log files. If you can't get access to it, Suganthan's written a really good blog on how to make your own log files, and maybe do that for a few weeks before using Cloudflare and Logflare analysis. That would be another perfect column to pull in, because as you said, Bernard, if it's being crawled often, then it's a really good bit of data to have.
You can blend the data, Andy, right? You can blend the analytic data with the log data.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
The the template we've got doesn't have it because 99% of people we speak to don't have it. So yeah, we don't bother putting it in that template.
Yep. It's just the deep esoteric SEO magic stuff, you know? All right, James here has a question. What are your thoughts on losing a ton of internal links to your core pages and historic EAT by pruning legacy content? Thinking particularly of news content, which is inherently time sensitive. Even if that content now drives no traffic and has no links, does it not contribute to your overall topical authority, which props up your core pages?
So what sort of site are we talking? Like we're talking a news site.
A news site, yeah.
That's an interesting one. We've had this with another interesting case study where we had this was with a huge gambling site, and it was whether we got rid of the pages after, you know, Manchester versus Everton only happens once in 2021 or whatever it might be, and whether you get rid of that page after. I think depending on the industry, I think it gets to a point where it goes so far back, then I think you could get rid of it with some confidence. Like if the BBC kept every single bit of BBC News, kept every single bit of content since they ever started, it's just going to get ridiculous. So I think if it was a news site and time sensitive and that was the topical relevance you had, I'd set a different time frame on it. So we look at 12 months of data. Perhaps if it's you know, BBC, go back further than that. And then I guess we've seen cases as well where rather than taking it down, you maybe set it up on some sort of other domain, so it's always there still. You're just moving it so that your main domain still got it. If that makes sense.
I mean, Google also knows these sites are news sites. They know if it's BBC, Google knows this site is a sort of ever-changing one, right? You know, content always, you know, quick, fast turnaround times, right? So Google knows that. You will lose equity for these pages, some of these pages internally, but then again, you will gain a whole bunch of new equity because, you know, the minute you have a breaking news story, right, it's just going to get linked from everywhere, right? So you're losing, a bunch of them when you prune, but you're also gaining new links, you know, for external links. And, you know, as you internally link inside, you're still going to pass through all those page ranks. So I think it's, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Especially authority brand like BBC, for example, as a news outlet.
Like I said, I just set that date further back, not 12 months, because news is still relevant 12 months later.
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw, like, this is somewhat relevant, not completely to news related content, but NerdWallet, as I'm sure a lot of you know, they write reviews on credit cards and do all kinds of personal finance stuff. Oftentimes, a review on a credit card goes outdated, right? Because the credit card no longer gets offered or terms on the credit card change. And I feel like NerdWallet has this very unique system where they'll put like a flag across the page that basically just says like, hey, this card is no longer offered, or some of the content might be outdated, but like check out these other cards that are like basically kind of relevant to if you were interested in this in the first place. And then I feel like after a period of time, that page does get removed from like the index. So there's like cool UX things that I think like bleeding edge SEO like experimenters are trying. And I feel like that's probably one of the best examples that I can think of where you have a page, you recognize that it's outdated, but people are still visiting it. And you have a system that like pushes the people to more relevant pages on your site and then like eventually prunes it off your site. Again, that's like, you know, really, if you care a lot about SEO, these would be like things that you could experiment with.
Bernard, TransferWise, they're called Wise now. So the reason I said TransferWise because everybody knows them as TransferWise. They had a system, like a framework, very similar framework, which checks, I think I was watching one of their presentations, one of their growth hacking on SEO, they're talking about it in a presentation where they said, if they detect, if they see these different currencies, like, you know, GBP to USD, or, you know, if they see any currencies that like, there's not much search volume in it, or there's not much traffic coming to these landing pages, they will automatically prune, like they will automatically redirect either, you know, or delete it automatically. And it will be, you know, shown as something closest to, you know, what the user is seeing, right, from the search. So they said they also have a system where they have these landing pages could be built through the blocks. So they're different blocks, right? So whenever they see a new term coming in, their system will trigger saying, hey, there's some search volume coming in for this type of like send money from India to UK, or, you know, India to another country likewise. And when they see it, they could easily like spin up a page really quickly by just dragging, dropping and building that landing page really quickly, that efficient. So I think they do a bit of a pruning as well, similar system.
Interestingly as well, it's a shame, like I said to you before the call, Barnard, it's a shame we're not doing this talk in 6 months, because we're developing a custom tool. I can't say too much. We're developing a custom tool for a client which literally has millions and millions of URLs that have fall between. So a lot of their content is user generated, and a lot of their content is keyword led. And a lot of the user generated content often overlaps with the stuff they've already got. And they want a way to come up with which content should be merged, which content should be just deleted, and which, if they do merge them, why, what keywords is one ranking for than not the other? So it goes into even more depth. It's just something like that Google Sheet just can't cope with something as complex as that. So we're doing like a custom bit of software for that. And I'd love maybe in 70 or probably less users now, because they're probably bored of us, I'm still interested, we could update them in sort of 6 months time about how that went and what that looks like, because that'd be really interesting.
We'll definitely have y'all both back for an encore to talk about whatever it is that y'all are working on, because again, I think
it'd be a really good case study if it goes right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always interested in hearing the latest and greatest from Suganthan and Andy. So I'm sure everybody here would love to have you back as well. The Praveen has a question. I think we kind of answered it. He asked, what do you suggest about event-based traffic pages, right? Pages that generate traffic on a topic related to some movie or news event. After some time, it loses traffic, goes down, right? What do you do in that case? I think that we've seen, like, I guess we were talking about it, but we've seen all kinds of cases where people leave it up. People have a programmatic way of redirecting or funneling the traffic to more relevant pages while taking it down in the future. Some people have modular pages where it'll come in, come out, that kind of thing. So I guess there's no completely right or completely wrong way of approaching it. But I guess my take here would be like some sort of a programmatic experience is probably the like optimal experience, since the page can change as events or like whatever change. That's like,
yeah.
It's also related to the site, right? If the site want to keep these events as a catalog, right? Then you know, keep it. Why delete?
I was gonna say, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Bernard. There's no right or wrong way, and the example of that news site was an interesting one. And if you'd asked me, I had a bit of time to think about it and look at it, I would have probably come with a better answer. But it just does depend. We've had some great questions, but a lot of them have been like, what is the right answer? And there isn't really one, as you said. There's no, like we said, for the news site, there might be a business reason that article needs to stay. We have had that, and there's ways. Then you think about, okay, we don't want to delete it. How do we handle it? Do we move it to a subdomain, or do we just move it to an archive folder, as Suganthan said, and then follow that folder so that at least we're not wasting crawl budget on it? Like, I think you've hit the nail on the head. There's no right or wrong answer. I think the main thing to take away is it's something to speed up that process, but it does really change from business to business. And yeah, there's no formula for how long you should wait before you do the next batch, or how big should the batches be. There's no formula for that. Or the news one was a great one, actually. Yeah.
Totally. I feel like the best paradigm that I can think of that matches these questions that like the event-based things is if you Google like anything trend, fashion trend, or like something like that, generally speaking, what you see ranking, or at least I've seen ranking in the past, are going to be these category pages, right? Basically category pages on media sites or publisher sites that are tagged fashion, or whatever. And then it'll be like this like thing that says like, oh, these are the latest fashion trends. And then, you know, the most recent blog post on that was tagged fashion was like, oh, things you need to be like looking out for as climate change affects the world in summer of 2021, something like that, right? And that'll be like there. And these category pages are actually the ones that are capturing the search volume because they're keeping in line with, well, how the subject is trending over time. So I feel like that just is a nod towards this idea that like a programmatic style page is likely to be the right approach for topics that change rapidly, because then the page will programmatically like evolve to like meet the needs of the searcher as the topic changes.
Yeah, and if you don't have that sort of experience or budget in house, this is what I wanted to say earlier. Is at the very least you can make, and we have made, data studio dashboard, which basically establishes, so every new bit of content you create goes into it, and then after 3 months it establishes a baseline traffic. And then what this does, what it should do in theory, is the traffic should keep going up. If it's not, then in 3 months time it will alert you as to why this traffic isn't moving, it's not whatever. If it starts to drop, then you immediately start updating it. So you do the content audit once, but then it shouldn't be a static thing you do once again in 2 years, and once again it should be set up a dashboard that establishes baselines for every blog and actually tells you this one's going down, this one's going up. Again, HubSpot, the reason they absolutely dominate their content is I've had glimpses into how their system works. They have like content high priority that should be updated, and every bit of content has a baseline traffic. The minute it drops beneath it, Christ, there's a memo out, can someone update this piece of content? It's literally that reactive. And that's where you want to be with it. And ultimately, if it never establishes any traffic, then we go, okay, just get rid of it and we'll go to the next one. So if you don't have, I guess, budget to do something for smaller sites, something as high tech as this auto sort of pruning thing, at least set up a dashboard that can do it like manually-ish, I think. I think you're on mute, Bernard, if you're saying something.
Yeah. All right, 2 more questions and then let's wrap it up. Nicholas asks an interesting question that is in alignment with everything that we have been talking. He says, let's say I do SEO for an insurance company with only a handful of products, and because of this, only a handful of product pages. If we stop offering a particular insurance product, but will likely offer it again in the future, would you recommend leaving the sometimes irrelevant product page alive in the interest of building and maintaining its authority for rank and high value keywords? I worry about the potentially poor UX of the landing page that then doesn't provide the user what they want. This is very similar to e-commerce.
Yeah.
When you run out of stock.
I can answer this question. I think it's a great question. I've run into this recently with a client who is in Norway. I was working on a client who does buildings. So they sell houses in different parts of the country. The exact issue came up where they said, look, they have like, so different places in Norway. Says, hey, let's just take UK for an example. It's easy to explain. So they Manchester, London, for example, the properties available in Manchester. Let's just say there's no a specific property not available in Manchester, right? But you still keep those landing pages active where a user will find it, but then there's no properties and poor user experience, right? I think the way we solve that problem is to say, look, we definitely want to keep the page, definitely don't want to remove it because you want to keep the authority, you want to keep building the authority. But to solve the issue with the UX, we could come up with a clever way of like when user lands on a page, there's nothing available. What we did is we created a carousel pop up and say, hey, look, it doesn't seem like there's nothing available in this location right now, but there are a few other suggestions for you that close by, like just say Manchester, for example. We'll look at other places that close by Manchester, yeah, but maybe you want to look around these places, which are very close to Manchester, right? We don't have anything available. And then what we did, we had a box that with the email opt-in. We say, look, fill this your email, put your email in, and we'll notify you when properties become available in that location. So you can solve the user experience and just try to balance the SEO with the user experience.
And then the other thing you can obviously do is just hide it from the navigation if that's how people are finding it.
Yeah.
Like Black Friday is a great example. The amount of sites I see that have a Black Friday 2018, Black Friday 2019, Black Friday 2020. Every time they do a new page, they're as the same as that insurance. You just be reducing your authority. You're starting again each time. So we always advise keep the Black Friday page, but when Black Friday is finished, just hide the page so that it can't be found naturally. If someone lands on it, then email capture form. Sorry, we'll let you know when Black Friday sales are back, something like that.
One last question from Sanjay. He asks, on average, how many pages does a website need to have before considering a content pruning project?
It's one of these absolute things again, isn't it?
It depends how many pages you have on your website, right?
So, okay. Rather than trying to give you a number, I'll tell you how. So that door website I showed you back here, they don't have a heap of pages, but they had a heap of crappy pages. They've only maybe got 120 pages, but 80 of them were crappy. So content audit, because a big percentage, it comes back to that idea of the corporate documents. Content audit, because a big load of them are crappy, so get rid of them. We're doing one for a similar industry, actually, a shutter company. And they've maybe only got 70 or 80 pages in total, but a big percentage of them are crappy. So content pruning because they're crappy. Ultimately, on the other hand, you could have a site with 80 pages and they're all decent-ish. I only realized they were crappy manually when it wasn't as if I did this and then realized it was crappy. It was when I was looking at the blogs, looking at Ahrefs, at the traffic, and thinking, well, actually, they've got a lot of pages, but not much are getting traffic. Okay, time to do a content audit. It's like chicken and the egg. I looked at the site before I decided it was time for a content audit, and I guessed a lot of the content was crappy, and I was right when we did the audit, I guess.
I guess, Andy,
Yeah.
also you can look at the traffic, right, and the number of pages you have, and try to and see.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've got 10, 15 pages, this is overkill. You can manually look at 10, 15 pages yourself. You start talking 60, 70. This method of using that spreadsheet we've given you starts to become efficient. If you're talking hundreds of thousands of pages, then definitely maybe look at doing an audit. But again, even then, so again, don't just do an audit because they've got 100,000 pages. So we're looking at a housing company at the moment that has hundreds of thousands of pages because they've got all the variations of houses for sale in California, 2-bed houses for sale in California, 3-bed houses for sale. And so they've got all those variations. And then they've got quite a small blog with only a couple of hundred. There's no point in doing. They've got 100,000, 200. Well, no, they've got about 2 million URLs. There's no sense doing a content audit because I know that all the pages they have related to the variations of the houses are needed. Just because they're not getting traffic doesn't mean they're crap. There's something technically wrong with that site. So it becomes a tech audit. There's no point looking at the blog because there's not enough pages, and we actually need to start looking at the technical side of how do we get 2-bedroom houses in California to rank rather than. So again, not a formula. You'll just know.
And
just say it depends. Says.
I hate saying that though, but
that is. You'll just know. You'll know when you need it, or it depends. I love the opposite. It's like, I'm hoping just know.
I'm hoping giving this. I'm hoping the 3 anecdotes I've given there give some sort of advice. Like, I just knew that half this blog was crappy.
All right, that's what I'm going to tell everybody moving forward. They'll be like, oh, what's his like Andy's spidey senses are tingling, so that means something's wrong.
How do I give an anecdote to it? Look at the site, and if you just know that a load of pages are bad by looking at it, if you see that there's 3,000 pages indexed on Google in Search Console, and then you go into Ahrefs, so you get into analytics, and then the 100 pages are getting the traffic. Is it an e-com? Is it predominantly e-commerce store, and is it e-commerce type pages or sales type pages? So in the case of the housing, is it those? If it is, then it's a technical issue. It's not a content audit that you need to do. It's a technical audit. If it's predominantly editorials and blogs and stuff, and that's the majority of the site, and they're not getting traffic, then it's a content audit I would do. Is that a better answer?
Yeah. You'll just know. Leave it like that. Well, again, thanks for everybody tuning in. Thank you, Suganthan and Andy, for sharing your wonderful wisdom around content pruning. Again, we would love to have you back whenever it makes sense, whenever you want to give a talk about any real findings that you found just doing all of the awesome, mind-blowing stuff that you're doing in SEO. I'll send everybody a recap of what we talked about, the links out to all of these different resources that were brought up during the call. And again, awesome stuff. And I'll sync up with y'all too over email right after this call.
Thank you, Bernard.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.